I understand some of that being that it's required and a lot of students want to do other things, but I'm going to tell you why it's actually a really cool thing to do. And actually even the parents' reaction is usually even worse, because they have to deal with you guys and they just want you to succeed so badly. So they freak out a lot about science fair. But if you're like me, or somebody who really loves science, your reaction might be a little bit more like this. And I know it's kind of nerdy, but you know, that's good. And I really, really enjoy science. I'm in AP Chemistry right now, and it's something that I really love. And I'm in my school has a science research program that I'm in, and because of that I've been able to do a lot of science competitions. But even when I was in middle school, I did science fair and state science fair. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, and also how to construct a really good and solid science fair project. So first of all, science research, it can be really, really exciting and creative if you don't think of it in the way that it's only for school. And it also has helped me make a lot of friendships. I still talk to a lot of people that I met at the state science fair and things like that. And it provides you with a lot of really great experiences. So this is a picture of the Miami-Dade group from the state science fair a few years ago. Actually, this was a long time ago, like maybe 4 years ago. But it's really cool. We have like a family, and if you look, we're making the 305 sign, which is really exciting. And I'm in the back of the picture here. My sister's there. You may know some of the other people in the picture. But anyway, it's just showing that there's a lot of friendship involved with science fair. And this is a picture from when I went to Washington, D.C. for a competition called the Broadcom Masters Competition that was in middle school. You apply for it in middle school, and you can either be nominated from the county or from the state science fair. And it's really, really cool. They send 30 students to Washington, D.C. for 5 days, and I'll tell you a little more about that in a little bit. So basically, how science fair is structured, there's the organization called SSP, which is Society for Science in the Public. And they sponsor the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair, which is called ISEF, and a lot of other science competitions. And their website is societyforscience.org/ISEF. So basically, science fair starts with the school fair, which is what you guys are all required to do. And then from there, each school can send up to 15 projects to the regional fair, which is called the South Florida Science and Engineering Fair. And then from there, a few of the top projects go to the state science fair, which switches off between Orlando and Lakeland, Florida, which is really exciting because usually you get to go to a Disney park or something like that. And the International Science Fair, or ISEF, is only for high school, but I'm going to tell you more about that too. Oh, there we go. So this May, I went to ISEF, and it was in Los Angeles this year, which was super exciting. And although the International Science Fair may seem to you guys to be not a very fun thing, it was 5 or 6 days, I think it was 6 days in Los Angeles, and it was so fun. We went to the beach, we toured LA, I met people from over 70 different countries, which was really exciting. And the judging is it's not as scary as you might think, or it's more what's the word, colloquial really. You're just telling about your project, and it's all really exciting to learn about all this really cool science that's going on around the world. So the Broadcom Masters Competition, these are just some pictures from it in Washington, D.C., which was probably one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had. I never thought that doing a middle school science fair project could take me this far, and it was extremely rewarding. And I met students from around the country. There were 30 of us. We spent 5 days in Washington, D.C., and we did a lot of really cool team activities that were really, really fun. And we met a lot of really important people, which was really exciting. So, science fair rules and regulations. So if you're doing a science fair project and you make it to the county fair, there are a lot of forms you have to fill out. This is just about the forms, really. So the ISEF affiliated fairs, which are the state and regional science fairs, you have to follow certain ISEF rules and use ISEF forms. And if you make it to the county science fair, you can find those on the ISEF website again. And if you're doing a study with vertebrate animals or human subjects, and I don't mean you're doing experiments on humans, I mean you're more of an observational study, like, for example, how does music affect test scores? Your subjects would be human subjects. Those require a lot more paperwork. But you don't really have to worry about that right now. So why do you need to know the scientific method? I know a lot of you probably think the scientific method is just this thing that you have to learn every year at the beginning of science. But it's actually really, really interesting. And every scientific discovery that ever has been done through the scientific method. And it's a tool that we as a people use to gain new knowledge about the world around us. And you're gonna have to know it because every science class you take, whether it's biology, chemistry, AP biology, AP chemistry, environmental science, all science classes have labs that follow the scientific method. So it's something you really need to know. So the hardest part of coming up with a science fair project is coming up with a project. You need a lot of curiosity to have a good science fair project, and you can't be scared to ask questions, because that's what science is all about. You have to, the best way to do it is to think of something in your community or in your everyday life that you have a question about, or that you're curious about, or you want to know more. And find that you might be able to alter or manipulate and find a really intriguing result, something that interests you. And it's really great if it's even better if it has practical applications to everyday life. And the greater the ingenuity of the question, the more valuable your project becomes. So think of what, like if you want to know why something happens, what is the reason behind that? Then once you've settled on a general direction that you want to take, do some research about it and see if you can find out more and if it really does interest you. You're going to need to compile some background information, and that's from different sources that you can find online or in books or things like that. And then once you do that and you've come up with a lot of background information and you know what you want to do, you've come up with your problem statement, which is the question, you know, how does this affect this, or something like that. From there, and after you've come up with your hypothesis and everything, you can start to create the experimental design. And to first do this, you identify your variables, your independent variable and your dependent variable. And I'm sure you guys know something about that, but just to refresh, your independent variable is what you're changing in the experiment, and your dependent variable is what you're measuring. So if, for example, if you're looking at how does caffeine affect the growth of tomato plants, let's say, your independent variable is the caffeine that you're adding to the plant, and your dependent variable is however you're measuring the growth of the plant, whether it's height or something like that. So once you identify your variables, you need to figure out how you're going to go about doing this. So you come up with your materials that you're going to need, how much time it's going to take, and you start writing out your step-by-step procedure. And then you need to know, how do you make sure that the independent variable is the actual thing that's causing a change in your project? How do you know it's not something else in the environment that's changing it? So this is why we need controls. It's extremely important to have controls, or else your project pretty much is not valid. If you don't have a control group, then you can't determine if the independent variable is the actual source of the change that you're seeing in the dependent variable. And that's extremely important, or else your project really doesn't mean anything. So you have to make sure that everything is held constant and that you have a control group where you're not changing anything. Once you perform the experiment, you have to organize your data in tables and graphs. And this is really, really important so that people can easily understand what you did and see what you did and really take away the important message. So in order to do this, you need to display your results in a way that's really easily understandable to somebody who's just looking at it for the first time. Because not everybody is going to know exactly what you did. You need to show them that when they look at it for the first time. And this changes for the type of results that you have. For example, for the tomato plant example, if we're going to keep going with that, if you're measuring height of different plants, you're not going to use something like a pie chart. That wouldn't really make sense. So you want to use something along the lines of more of maybe a bar graph. So it really depends on what type of results you're showing. And then once you have the graphs, you write up the results section, which is not analysis. The results section is just a description of what you did, not what you did, a description of what's being shown in the graphs. You describe, like, for this plant, we saw this change in this and this. And it's basically just reiterating what the graph is showing, what's going on in the graph. And then your conclusion is where you analyze the data, and you make educated inferences about what your data represents and what the meaning of it is. And this is where you analyze whether or not your hypothesis was correct, and why you think it was or wasn't correct. So give reasons as to why you think what you saw is the case. Why do you think that happened? The practical applications are one of the most important parts of your science fair project, because if it doesn't have a lot of meaning to everyday life, then your project isn't really that important. So you want to make it really want to connect it to the real world, why it's really important. And this is extremely important in science fair, because this is one of the biggest things that judges want to know when they look at your project is, why is this important, how does this affect the world, things like that. So this is a very important section of your project.